Welcome home to St. Anne's, a place of community, love, and faith. No matter who you are or where you are in your spiritual journey, there's a place for you at Christ's table. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. or anytime online. We look forward to seeing you.
Maybe. Depends on how I feel. Like now I feel challenged, and now I could go a really long time. I hope you all have something to drink. An empty block. I am not paid by the hour, that is true. No, it's like back in the old days in literature, the books you got paid by word. And so, they're very descriptive. Do you still get paid by word? Yeah. So, oh, no. Okay, here's my story about my dad. Well, and you all know last week Eric was back in the windows being like, looked like a little ostrich back there. Anyway, my dad sat in pew 13. That was the same pew that my great-grandmother sat in. Like, I'm pretty sure it had like a spot in it from all the clerks who had always sat there. But it was right in front of the pulpit. And St. John's, I want you to imagine the complete opposite of this congregation. It's like straight out of England. It's a stone church, Tiffany windows, all the things. It's enormous, enormous pulpit with an eagle, all the things, right? And so the priest is up there preaching, and my dad would be writing his check. And right at the point in the sermon where my dad was kind of done with the sermon, you hear this rip. And remember, this is a cavernous church. It echoed, rip. And the priest would kind of look and like, I guess it's time to wrap it up. Because whether or not you want that check to go into the plate or not hinges on this sermon. So hopefully, 7-minute sermons. The older I get. I know. And the older I get, the longer they get. No, we're probably almost double that now, aren't we? So the reason for the 7-minute sermons is, that the human attention span really is 7 minutes. So you go beyond 7 minutes and people don't catch anything anyway. But it's going to take us 7 minutes before we even get to a sermon today. So, there we go. But let's talk about our actual gospel today, shall we? Because I think it's important. So we get to this section in Matthew. Matthew is a get-it-done kind of writer, right? And so all of a sudden we have this huge chunk of healing. He just does a ton of miracles all in one setting. And so we get this story today. We get multiple stories today, actually, of healing. And I think they're important stories to look at. Because sometimes in our culture, and in what you pick up in the Pharisees and this Pharisaic conversation, is separation, right? Did you pick that up in Scripture? Do you ever notice that in our own culture? We separate things. We separate the good from the bad, right? In the old Westerns, the good guys wore the white hats, the bad guys wore the black hats, and we have that. We want to separate things without realizing the amount of gray in them. And that all of this is all together all the time. And it's a simplistic way of looking at things, the separations, right? People are either good or they're bad. Your decisions are either good or they're bad. And God is there, good, and humans are there, bad. And the two don't mix. And yeah, when we come to Scripture, that's absolutely inaccurate. And I want us to talk about the woman with the hemorrhage. Because you can say period in church, okay? In fact, I have 3 daughters, right? I have a shocking number of amount of estrogen in my house. And don't feel bad for Eric. He's fine. The puppy is a boy. Okay? Other than that, the farmlet is female only. I have a strict female only rule on the farmlet. Like down to the chickens. Like when I go pick up the chickens, I'm like, I only want girls. And the guy is like, I will make sure you only get girls. And I'm like, thank you. Okay. Well, except that's not a chicken. That's a mini bird. Okay, see, we are just all over the place today. Would you like the story of the mini bird? I'll give you the story of the mini bird. Okay, so Eric says, because we're down to like 1.5 chickens, because pipsqueaks not really, I mean, you guys have gotten the eggs. Some weeks they're like these little tiny eggs. Those are pipsqueak eggs. So I really only have one that's laying consistently. And even Eric is finally at the point. He's like, okay, you can go get 6 chicks. And I said, perfect, I will go get 6 chicks. So I go to my chicken guy because I have a chicken guy. Of course I have a chicken guy. Who wouldn't have a chicken guy? And I say, I need 6 hens. And he's like, okay. He's like, I'm going to give you my best layers, 6 hens. Here you go. But while I'm there, I look over in this box, and there are these adorable little birds, and they have feathery legs. I'm a sucker for feathery legs. Like, not my own, but in birds. And I'm like, what about these? And he said, well, I can't guarantee that those are hens, and those are banties. And I said, yeah, but I want one. So I bought one. And Eric, I come home, and he's like, you have 6 chickens. And I said, no, I don't. He said, you have 7. I said, no, I don't. I have 6 chicks and a mini bird. It's not a chicken. It's a mini bird. That's the story of the mini bird. I only have 6. So if he comes to you and says, how many chickens? 6. I bought 6. None of that has to do with any of the stuff that we're talking about. But it does have to do with the fact that we separate things, right? And so when we get to the woman with the hemorrhages, what's important in this story is that due to that disability, what is happening to her, she cannot be in the community because it makes her impure and unclean. And what I want you to notice in Scripture is that Jesus will often heal communities by healing individuals. So we get really sucked into Jesus is healing people, right? An individual. But when you go deeper into it, what Jesus is really doing is putting communities back together again. So we have these fractured groups, and we as a society are fractured right now, right? We talk about that all the time in here. We don't agree on certain things, so we fracture. Age groups, we fracture them. Abilities, we fracture them. Different identities, we fracture based on that, right? People who struggle with like addiction or abuse of some situation, we splintered them off, right? And what Jesus does is Jesus comes in and says, no, that's not how we live together. We live together as one. And that's so very, very important in this story because this woman knows that she's other. To the degree that and you get it less in Matthew because I told you Matthew goes pretty quickly. We get this story a little bit more intensely in some of our other Gospels. But there's this crowd, this group of people, and she thinks to herself, if I so much as touch something that he's touching, if I so much as touch his cloak, I will be healed. Because she knows that she can't approach him, right? She knows that he will not interact with her. Now, in reality, what do we know about Jesus? That he will. But she knows that she's so other that she cannot even approach society. That's important. And then we have the daughter of the leader, right? Who comes and says, my daughter is dead. And that also would be a cause for separation or otherness, right? And what does Jesus do? He brings them all back together again. I want us to think about that because we are so often driven by othering and separating that we end up destroying our own communities. You can't sit with us, right? You're not really an American if you don't think these things. You're not really a Christian if you don't think these things. You're not really one of us if you're not. I mean, how many churches have all sorts of different rules for membership, right? And how often do we do that to ourselves? If there's something about me that I'm embarrassed about, I will separate myself. Can I tell you something? My gosh, it was for the longest time that I just wouldn't go places with my kids because my disability I thought was embarrassing to them. And it's true. It is. It is embarrassing, right? When you're a kid. Like your mom walks around like she's drunk all the time. She uses a cane. Sometimes she's in a wheelchair. And so I would say, Eric, go take the kids. And finally, it wasn't until we were on vacation some years ago that the girls approached me and they said, Mom, we want you to go. Use the wheelchair. We want you to go. You know how healing that was for me? Because it reunified my family. It wasn't that I didn't want to be with my kids. It's the fact that I didn't want to hold them back. It was the fact that, like, when you go to a band concert and your mom is that mom, you worry about that, right? And so sometimes we ourselves separate ourselves from community because there are things about us that we are ashamed about. Maybe we struggle with addiction. Maybe we struggle with something about our identity that we think is embarrassing or other. Or there are all sorts of things. We avoid certain parties or certain friends or certain coworkers because there are things that we think are other. How much does that change our community and our society and our world when we say, no, there is no such thing as other? When Jesus comes in and brings all of us back together again. That's who we are called to be as a church. That's who we are called to be as Christians. That's who we are called to be as individuals, as family, as a society, as all those things. We say there is no other. There is nothing that we can't talk about. There is nothing that separates us from the love of God. But we do it, don't we? Aren't there certain things that we just don't talk about in church? We don't talk about periods in church. Circling all the way back to the conversation that first started. We're packing Wesley up to go on this camp for 3 weeks, right? And we're at Target. And Eric says, do you need tampons? Oh, Dad, you can't say that in Target. I was like, sweetheart, he's been married to your mother for a very long time. He has 3 daughters. He is the son-in-law of a dad of daughters. If he can't talk about tampons, then 51% of the population worries about tampons, okay? We can talk about that. But do we do that in churches? We're like, we can't read that part of the Bible because it will make people feel uncomfortable. Have you read the Bible? There is literally nothing that doesn't appear in the Bible. Good Lord, read it. It should come wrapped in plastic with a little black box saying, I don't know if your kids should read this. Yeah, or a brown paper. Because good heavens, there's some, when they say, we need to bring the Bible back into schools, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you're worried about us reading if you're worried about me reading Mouse in school, I don't know if you want us reading the Bible. Good heavens, there's some stuff in there. But all of it, we are humans. If we can't acknowledge and be open and honest about our humanity and what that looks like, if we can't be vulnerable, we will miss God. Because guess where God shows up? And a person giving birth in a barn. That's where Jesus shows up. And this woman who is experiencing for 12 years this thing that removes her from society. I mean, the good old Anglican tradition is you take that woman, you put her in an asylum, and you take her money. It's a good T.S. Eliot. All the good people did that back in the day. That's what you do. You separate, right? I'm getting in trouble for saying something about T.S. Eliot. Am I? Jesse, am I in trouble for saying T.S. Eliot? Oh my God, beautiful poet. Okay, beautiful poet. I adore T.S. Eliot, okay? But as an individual, but you didn't want to be married to him. So T.S. Eliot, I told you today is just a day. You're going to get all these side stories. 10:28, how am I doing on time? I got to wrap it up, don't I? If you guys want the story of T.S. Eliot, you'll have to find me later. You guys want the story of T.S. Eliot? And separation? Okay. So T.S. Eliot, beautiful poet, fantastic writer, not a great husband. He is married to a woman. She has a lot of money. She's really the money one. She probably now we would know that she was going through she's going through some stuff, right? She was on her period all the time. And he's like, that one's crazy. So he puts her in an asylum and he took all of her money. It's a fine tradition when you get into the 20th century. But there you go. That's all. Anyway, we are not separating people. Jesus comes and brings us back together. And read Cats. It's a beautiful poem. It really is. Y'all are going to go Google T.S. Eliot right now, aren't you? If I haven't done anything, at least I'll made you read T.S. Eliot. Let's join together and say the words of the Nicene Creed. We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.